Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Passball Show, brought to you by johnpielli.com, as well as St. Aloysius Church and School over in Jackson, New Jersey. Lots of stuff we're going to get into today. We're going to do a little bit of an abbreviated show. I'm going to cut out about 6:35 or so Eastern, and we'll get set for the weekend. I hope everybody enjoys the upcoming weekend. I know over in the Northeast area, they're expecting a little bit of snow, but, whatever. It's kind of par for the course now. The weather just kind of jumps from temperature to temperature. It goes from being, fairly warm like it is today, kind of in the 50s, almost 60 degrees. And then, within 24 hours, it's going to get pretty cold. And, you may get a little bit of precipitation, a little bit of snow. And, it's, like I said, just kind of the deal you have to get used to over here in this type of area. I know if you're in anywhere else in the country, maybe down in Florida, where I plan on being in about 3 weeks or so for spring training, or in the southern part of California, in San Diego, you're used to beautiful weather just about every day. Just a reminder, anybody who wants to involve themselves in the show, wants to be part of the whole thing, the number is 732-364-3598. That's 732-364-3598. We got the Facebook Live feed, which is up now. So anything that involves baseball, sports, and unifying America that you want to contribute to the show, please comment away. I've done a better job in regards to being there, interacting with comments, and I know it's a different type of way of communicating with people, but as we move on in the world and got to take advantage of technology, comment feeds I think are just as important as far as interacting with the show. Of course, you could always tweet at me at John_Pielli, but mainly if you want to go old school and call in the show, go for it, man. And you know what? There's people that think baseball sucks, just like real Brett Francis, and good for him, man. Brett, you want to contribute to the show? Tell me what you think is better than baseball. What do you think is great? Go for it, man. This is the interactive part of the show where we want to involve the listeners. And if there's anything that it is that you want to discuss that you feel takes more of stage of baseball as you're getting ready for it, go for it. I mean, we got one of the things first I wanted to start the program by talking about is a perception that people have in regards to whether it's athletes, whether it's people that have a name to themselves, whether you're in Hollywood, whether you have whatever. Because of your name, the bottom line is you have a bunch of people that follow you because of what you've accomplished and what you're known for. And the saying continues to go, stick to whatever it is your profession is. And the unfortunate thing is that when you do that, or when you keep somebody's, expertise to just being what it is that they're known for, I think you're selling yourself a little bit short. And one person I wanted to mention is, LeBron James. He comes out, he's obviously very outspoken about the president, and there's a lot of people that have a name to themselves that are. And the quick response to that, to anybody that is, let's say, a supporter of the president or a person that is just against LeBron James, would simply be able to say, stick to sports. But I think that only holds up to a certain level. Because my question is always, all right, if you are an athlete or you are an entertainer, my question to you is, what are you doing to make the situation better? Are you just running your mouth? Are you just getting your name out there and saying, hey, it's me, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I have popularity and I have a following and can go out there and say whatever it is that I want? Now, LeBron James, what he is actually doing is he's taking millions of his own dollars and he's helping underprivileged children get to and through college. So he's backing up the words that he said. You may not have to agree with everything that he says. In fact, you could go the opposite and disagree with a lot of his rhetoric and a lot of him taking the microphone and using the platform that he has to speak about other things that are not involved in a world of sports. And we are going to take a shot here. This is the Pass Ball Show. Who's on the line?
Hi, sir. Good evening. Am I speaking to Mr.
No, you're not. So there you go. Our first call of today was just a random person calling to talk about whatever it is that's not related to the show. But I do want to throw the number out there. If anybody does want to call in, 732-364-3598. That's 732-364-3598. Now, when it comes to what I was just talking about, the fact that people, use their name, the fact that people know who they are to speak about other topics and social issues that exist in this country, if you are doing something about it, if you are part of the cause to try to better things, then I think your voice does carry a little bit of weight. If you're not, if you're just, blabbing about something with the sake of just wanting to draw attention to yourself about a topic that you may not necessarily be passionate about, but you're going to use your name because it can get out there quicker than some other people, then that is counterproductive. And I think we have to, as society, judge the difference between somebody that is speaking for the sake of hearing their own voice and then somebody that's actually getting behind a cause. Somebody like LeBron James that's spending a lot of his earned money on, underprivileged kids that, may not have the opportunity to go to college because of their upbringing and maybe for financial reasons. These people are getting opportunity because he is backing the cause that he's supporting. And if more people were to do that, rather than just be out there to hear themselves talk, I think we can make some progress. There are certain cities and upbringings that people have that they have no opportunity because of money. And money is tough in a lot of different areas. And if more people that felt the need to talk and speak up about the cause would put some of their money behind it, as opposed to just speaking about it, then I think we can get a long way. Moving on, we're going to get into the world of sports. I wanted to talk a little baseball today. We were looking at the off season for, a couple of different teams starting to take shape, but obviously the free agent market, the way it's set up in baseball is, there's still so many possibilities. And usually around this time of year, I start writing my team predictions based off of the over-under numbers that are set forth by Las Vegas. And I'm a little kind of apprehensive to get started on it because I still feel like there's so much of the offseason that hasn't been solved. Somewhere between about 80 and 90 free agents. If you look at the top 20 or 30 or 40 free agents that are out there in baseball, there are there's very few even leads in regards to trying to figure out where they may end up. You got a spring training camp that started out with just free agent players that agencies have gotten together, with their players to keep them in good shape, to get them ready for the start of the baseball season, even though a lot of them don't have jobs yet. So in a normal position right now, as we sit at the 16th day of February, we're starting to get into our predictions as far as what we feel certain teams are going to be. And listen, no matter where you are, whether you do this for a living, whether you are a fair weather sports fan, everybody's opinion counts, and everybody has, a lot in regards to a lot of fans out there have a favorite team that they're rooting for or getting excited at the start of the baseball season. Now, how this is different from other seasons, of course, is the fact that within a week, if somebody wanted to go out there, they could pick off 2-3 free agents and change the complete outlook of the respective team that they are rooting for. Or you could be rooting for a team and an in-division rival. Whether let's say you're a Cubs fan. You're getting ready for the season. You're trying to defend your 2016 World Series championship, and you just added Yu Darvish, and things are looking good. And all of a sudden, a team like the Milwaukee Brewers can go out there and make a signing of a Jake Arrieta, and maybe bring in a Mike Moustakas to play third base, which obviously would create quite a bit of a logjam with Travis Shaw playing there, Eric Thames at first. You already got 4 starting outfielders in Domingo Santana and Ryan Braun, and the 2 guys you just acquired, Lorenzo Cain and Christian Yelich. But, the Brewers are in a position where they may be a move or two away from getting themselves in the upper echelon of the National League. You got the National League West, which looks to be very competitive coming into this season, with the Dodgers being the Dodgers, but the Giants making the moves for Andrew McCutchen and Evan Longoria, and the possibility that they may be willing to do a little bit more. They have a pretty solid pitching staff led by Madison Bumgarner, with Johnny Cueto coming back and Jeff Samardzija. They got some questions, but they also are in a position where they could be a move or two away of getting back to the prominence that they had not that long ago. Now, it seems like they are a little removed from the team that won 3 World Series in 5 years, in 2010, 2012, and 2014. But they're pretty close. And you got the other 2 teams in that division, not counting the San Diego Padres, who I think are still another year or so away. But the Colorado Rockies addressed their bullpen situation. They still have some of the best players in the game in Nolan Arenado and Charlie Blackmon, and an offense which, of course, is enhanced by the presence of Coors Field, which, there's going to be a lot of runs scored there. But, they also have the pieces that are able to, provide a lot of that offense. The Arizona Diamondbacks are pretty interesting to me because the way they looked at the end of last season with J.D. Martinez, not only that, but having Paul Goldschmidt, other stars like Zach Greinke. This was a team that took some major steps last year. And where they sit right now, they could be a wild card, not just in a wild card persona as far as getting in and earning a spot in the postseason, but they could be a wild card in regards to their impact in the rest of the National League and in baseball. And I think they are a move or two away if they're willing to spend. And J.D. Martinez is still out there as a free agent. I know everybody has him linked to the Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox have really been the only team that has gone out there and made a legitimate offer, one in which J.D. Martinez doesn't seem to be too happy about, but I believe a lot of that is pressure from the agent, Scott Boras. Scott Boras is out there breathing in J.D. Martinez's ear every day, saying, this isn't good enough, this isn't good enough, I could get you more money. Well, as we sit, like I said, in the middle of February right now, when do you start to question that as a player? When do you start to question the motives of your agent, who is out there essentially trying to build an empire off of himself, rather than do what it is that's best for his players? Yes, in a perfect world, when you have the demand for the supply that's there, and teams are throwing 6-figure offers upon 6-figure offers at you, the player as well as the agent, you have a little bit more of a ground to stand on. But what happens when pitchers and catchers are reporting to spring training? Players are going to start to join them pretty soon. Within about a week or so, you're going to see competitive baseball being played in spring training. And if you're an agent for a player, you could keep selling them in regards to what's the best for them. Wait out a little bit. The big offers are going to start coming in. But what happens when a J.D. Martinez or a Jake Arrieta or an Eric Hosmer or Mike Moustakas are sitting there watching competitive baseball games being played and teams getting ready for the start of the 2018 season, and they're still without a job? Do players start speaking up? Not against the establishment, which they've been speaking out against baseball and its owners and its teams for being a little frugal and in some cases cheap this offseason. But when do they start speaking up and just basically saying that they want to play baseball? Is anybody going to take that stance? Because right now that's almost an anti-players association, anti-agent, anti-Major League Baseball player stance. Is there anybody that has the balls to stand up and say, listen, I want to play baseball. I may not necessarily be looking to play for free, but I feel like I should be out there practicing, whether it's in, Florida or Arizona, as the baseball season's about to start. When does that first person kind of go up against the tide? But going back to what I was saying about the Arizona Diamondbacks, if they could jump in and sign a J.D. Martinez, I think they would be in an excellent position. I think they could take the jump from being a team that gave the Dodgers a good fight in the division series last year, to a team that could potentially win that division. They have enough strength in their pitching staff. They have a star player in Paul Goldschmidt, but J.D. Martinez was kind of that it factor. And it made a big difference, him being, what he was doing at the end of last season. He had kind of a cesspit 2015 in the second half of his 2017 season. Hitting 40-something home runs, only playing in 117 games for the season. Do the Red Sox necessarily get themselves in a better position? Are they a better team with J.D. Martinez? Or do they decide to go a different route? Because remember, the Boston Red Sox have 3 starting outfielders. They got Jackie Bradley in center, but he's flanked by one of the better players in all of baseball, Mookie Betts. Andrew Benintendi, who, if it wasn't for Aaron Judge last year, would have been the American League Rookie of the Year in 2017. They have a designated hitter in Hanley Ramirez. I know the Red Sox are not 100% sold on him. I know he's a shell of the former player that he used to be. But the Red Sox also brought back Mitch Moreland. So if they sign J.D. Martinez, who may be playing some outfield, maybe DHing a little bit, kind of creates a little bit of a logjam there. And yes, you think of the 40-plus home runs that Martinez could bring to the table. You add that to your lineup, a team in Boston that didn't hit a whole lot of home runs last year. You could tell they missed the presence of Big Papi. Not only in the clubhouse, but certainly on the field and the numbers that he was able to produce year in and year out. So it's hard to put in place what you think could be the best fit, because there are probably a handful of teams that have been very quiet this offseason that may be thinking they have an opportunity to strike. The Philadelphia Phillies, I think, are very interesting. I wouldn't put them in a market for, let's say, a Martinez, because I think offensively they have very few places where you could put somebody and say that is a legitimate upgrade and is not disrupting some of the stuff that they've built there. Carlos Santana, they bring him in to play first base. You got the rookie phenom, Rhys Hopkins, hitting the amount of home runs that he was hitting last year, and you expect that he's going to be your everyday left fielder. Scott Kingery is a young prospect that they expect to be playing second base every day, but they have Cesar Hernandez kind of holding the clipboard for him until he's ready. Maikel Franco is their starting third baseman. So from an offensive standpoint, I can't see the Philadelphia Phillies, though they have the budget, they have the type of money to go out there and make a legitimate free agent push for somebody. But I tell you, they could be in a very good position if they wanted to jump into the Jake Arrieta sweepstakes. Yu Darvish signing with the Cubs closes off that possibility, and the Cubs got a very solid 5-man rotation. If you look at Darvish and Jose Quintana and Kyle Hendricks and Tyler Chatwood, they're in a pretty strong position for their starting rotation. They don't need to add another arm, let alone a guy like Jake Arrieta, who's probably going to cost over $100 million. But I look at the Phillies, and I say that, they've addressed their bullpen. They brought in Santana. They have some very good young players that are already at the major league level, some more on their way. If they want to accelerate their time clock in regards to coming in and becoming a force in the National League, bringing in Jake Arrieta for a $100 million contract may be the best signing for them. And it may be a better signing for the Phillies than it would be for any other team. I know we talk about the Milwaukee Brewers and their place in regards to, needing a top starter. And Arrieta for them would be great. But I think the Brewers would also be good if they signed an Alex Cobb or a Lance Lynn. I think they can get a good enough return on either one of those pitchers to make up for the less money that they would have to spend by landing a Jake Arrieta. So if I'm going to say what team I think would be best suited for Arrieta at this point, it would absolutely be the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, the New York Mets made a signing. They brought in Jason Vargas, guy who happened to lead the American League in wins last year, which I'm sure, unless you follow baseball 24/7, probably didn't know that. He's a guy that adds a little bit of depth to the Mets rotation, and obviously the Mets starting rotation, if everybody is healthy, without Vargas, will be expected to perform at a very high level. Now you look at Syndergaard and DeGrom, who are obviously expected to carry the Mets rotation, and first and foremost, you hope that they're healthy. But the rest of the Mets rotation is a little bit shaky. You got Matt Harvey, who pitched to a 6.6 earned run average last year. And I understand he comes into camp, is going to tell you that he's in really good shape, and things are going to be great for him. He expects to return to something or some fraction of the form that he was in 2015. But he's a huge question mark. Steven Matz, who since he's made his major league debut, hasn't been able to stay on the field consistently. He had an operation that was pretty similar to what Jacob deGrom had at the end of the 2016 season. So if you look at deGrom's recovery, you expect Matz to have a similar type of recovery. But the problem with Steven Matz is that there was always something with him. If he gets through this, whether it's the shoulder, the elbow's going to cramp up, or he's going to have some sort of problems. And I understand, he's in a different generation of pitcher, where since his days in high school, he was always told that if something hurts him to speak up. And maybe he tried last year to toughen it up. Maybe he tried to go out there and pitch through a little bit of pain last year. And he finally came up with too much pain and couldn't go through with it anymore. But I'll tell you one thing that stands out. He cannot be counted on. I mean, when he was pitching through pain last year, he was horrible. But you always, regardless of when Steven Matz is on the mound, you're always wondering when's going to be that next injury. And I want to see Steven Matz get through a full season more than anybody. But at the very least, he cannot be counted on. And you got Zack Wheeler, who missed 2 years after his Tommy John surgery. And I said at the beginning of 2015 that I was very much concerned over whether Zack Wheeler had to go through the procedure and have Tommy John surgery. I mentioned this on my show in 2015. It was like a weird thing. He was pitching through spring training, no problems. All of a sudden, he's going through a precautionary MRI. And 2 days later, or it seemed like 2 days later, he's undergoing Tommy John surgery. I have a concern that he may not have needed to have Tommy John surgery. And because of that, it took him over 2 years to get back on a major league mound. And he's still struggling to this point to get himself back to where he was in spring training of 2015 before he had the operation. So there's got to be concerns with him. And I tell you, the last thing I need to hear from, or anybody needs to hear from, is from Zack Wheeler about his concern that he may have about being pushed out of the Mets rotation. He came back at supposed full strength in spring training and at the start of the 2017 season. He had some moments, but he couldn't stay on the field last year either. And whether it had to do with the Tommy John operation that he had a full 2 years before, that could be part of it. But the bottom line is he didn't perform. And when he was out on the field, he was not very good. So Zack Wheeler could have kept the Mets from having to sign a veteran pitcher. Even though Jason Vargas is more of the journeyman guy, I wouldn't put him up towards the top echelon of pitchers, though he won 18 games last season for the Kansas City Royals. But Zack Wheeler has to go out there and prove something. And I don't know if he was ambushed with the questions that he was asked today, but he could have very well avoided being perused by the media, especially if he wasn't feeling up to giving professional answers. Because he gave you the impression today when he was talking that there was something there that he was entitled to. The guy who's pitched just a handful of innings in the last 3 seasons, and those handful of innings are the equivalent of rat excrement, doesn't put him in a position to have any sort of entitlement. And I know it's tough on a young man. A guy that busted his ass to get to the major leagues, had a ton of talent, was a first-round draft pick, had, media following him all around when he was signed by the Giants, ends up being part of that Carlos Beltran trade, coming to the New York market, where everybody's expecting him to be part of the future solution of the New York Mets. And he may have been well on his way. He had a pretty good 2014 season, one that looked like, in spite of a couple ups and downs, that he was on his way. He had to deal with the Tommy John surgery, which once again, I'm not sure he needed to have. Took him 2 full years to get back. I'm sure he was anxious when the 2017 season started. But when he came out there after a couple of good games, really left the Mets with no choice but to try to at least give him some competition. And if I was Zack Wheeler, I would look at Jason Vargas and I would say, you know what? This is a guy that's presence might give me the kick in the ass that I deserve or I need. Zack Wheeler can make this not a story by going out there and performing, by getting himself somewhat close, something resembling the pitcher that he was in 2014, something resembling that high prospect that he was after he was the 6th overall selection in a draft. The guy that was good enough by himself and his prospect status of being traded straight up for Carlos Beltran. He's blessed with the arm. He's blessed with the talent. He knows it. Unfortunately, not a lot of people that are watching him still believe it. And the only person that could change that is Zack Wheeler. And if he goes out there, has a good spring, earns a spot in the Mets rotation, and never looks back, then he did all that he needed to do. But any comments that he makes are absolutely useless at this point. Because his track record over the last 3 seasons is the reason why the Mets signed Jason Vargas. And if you look at the way the Mets rotation is going to pan out, I told you, you hope that DeGrom and Syndergaard are healthy. If they are, you don't have to worry about them. But I tell you, nobody else in that rotation would give you as a fan a lack of fear. Matt Harvey, like I said, pitched to a 6.6 ERA last year. And I understand he has a lot on his shoulders. He's finally getting that walk year where he could be a free agent at the end of the 2018 season. Odds are his next contract will be signed by another team other than the New York Mets. But what kind of contract is it going to be? It's certainly not going to be of the 100 to 150 million variety that him and Scott Boras were thinking about years ago. If Matt Harvey gives you anything close to what he gave you in 2017 and a good part of 2016 before his injury, he'd be lucky to sign a major league contract for the 2019 season. So the Mets as an organization are in a good spot for this reason. Number one, they have a little bit of depth in their starting rotation. You got Harvey, you got Matz, you got Zack Wheeler, you added Jason Vargas, Robert Gesellman is still there, Rafael Montero is still there, Seth Lugo is still there. And I know none of those names jump out to you and give you any excitement as the season gets ready to start. But they have some depth. They have some serviceable starting pitchers that they could put out there if the guys that they are expecting to go out there and perform either can't or can't stay healthy. But the wild card being Harvey, pitching on a contract year, it's all on Matt Harvey. As we hit what normally would be the halfway point of the Pass Ball Show, but we're only going to stick with you for a couple more minutes. I do want to thank everybody that's tuned in and watched. I'll be happy to, come back next week. We got a couple good guests coming on the show. Longtime writer Jerry Eisenberg will be joining the show some point next week, as well as author David Bonson, who wrote the book Crisis of Responsibility, as we start to talk about things that we could do as people to unify ourselves, stop being at each other's throats, stop blaming each other for, number one, things that are out of our control, but find what makes the country great. The fact that all of us come from all wakes and shapes and forms and looks, in different areas and different upbringings. And the fact that the melting pot of the United States was supposed to be our strength, the strength that it can bring all types of people together. But it's not right now. We're using all our differences against ourselves. And until we start looking at the shots and the negativity that we are doing when it comes to blaming each other for everything, these figurative shots that we're throwing out there, we should start to feel the pain because we're hurting ourselves. We'll get into that next week. But let me finish the last couple points in regards to the Mets rotation. They have a ton of possibilities. They could go with a 6-man rotation. But you know what? They'll go with a 6-man rotation, in my opinion, when there's 6 pitchers amongst that group that I just mentioned that are proven worthy to go out there every 5th or 6th day. And right now, there's plenty of questions about Harvey. Is he healthy? Is he anything close to what he was years ago? Steven Matz, can he stay on the mound? Can he make consecutive starts? Seth Lugo, kind of up and down. You know he's got the issue in his elbow. Will that at some point lead to Tommy John surgery? It may not. But I think the Mets could put 5 or 6 of those guys, if they're pitching well and if they're healthy, and can make for one of the better rotations in baseball. One of the things we'll get into next week, we'll start doing our team-by-team previews. We're also going to get into the world of basketball. We talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Are they better after making the trades that they made? Are the Houston Rockets for real? You got James Harden and Chris Paul, 2 players that individually and together have yet to win a big game in their basketball lives. Is that Houston Rockets team to be taken seriously? We'll be back with you Monday at 8 o'clock right here on Periscope and Facebook Live. God bless you. Have a nice weekend. And as always, I'll see you on the other side.